Hi, and welcome back to the Lightspeed Social Agency YouTube channel. Sitting down today with Paul Jamison, host of the Green Industry podcast. And we are just going to talk today about where Paul came from, how he got involved in the green industry, and how he grew his business, and then how he came to be a podcaster that everyone in the industry knows his name. Paul, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Good to be here, Cody. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Got the official Lightspeed mascot wandering around here. Rusty, I don't think you've met Rusty, but the viewers have met him before.
Yeah, I've seen him in the back of your videos.
But yeah, so just tell us, like, how did the business start?
Yep. So 2011, Cody, I was broke, busted, and disgusted. I had just gotten out of college and no one really taught me about student loans and interest. And I was financially illiterate. And so I went to high school and that was, fun. I went to college at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio for 4.5, 5 years. And I'm not a doctor. And I get out of there and I'm in the real world now. So I was used to going at the dining hall for breakfast, lunch, dinner. I worked at the dining hall, so I'd get free meals there. And here I am in the real world. And I was, my friend asked me if I could stay at his house and pay his mortgage because he was moving out to Kansas City for a year. So I was like, sure, man, no problem. He's like, yeah, I'll be $928. He's like, why don't you just get a few guys, charge them $300 a month for the rooms. And, you get 5, 6 guys, you'll be making money, it's like, yeah, it's a good idea. I had an entrepreneurial spirit. Yeah, let's do it. And I couldn't get any roommates, zero. No. So now I'm looking at $928 a month. And all I was doing at the time was I was selling vitamins for a company called Melaleuca. And that was a commission check that was a hit or miss. And so I get like $1,500 one month and next month, maybe only $600. So I didn't have enough money to pay my bills. And I was literally broke. Okay. And I'm stressing out because I have to send my friend $928. And I'm like thinking, I could rob a bank. I could, I don't know. I didn't know how I was going to come up with the money. And so I was embarrassed to tell my parents and everything. And so I'm walking, I'm literally talking to God. I'm praying. I'm walking through the neighborhood. I'm like, how am I going to get the money to pay all these bills? And here I am, this millennial facing real life of expenses and bills. And as I'm praying and walking through this neighborhood, I see this yard, Cody, and it's completely overgrown. And that wasn't what was unusual. What was unusual about it was there was a for sale sign in the yard. And I thought, who in the world would try to sell a house that looks so raggedy? Like, wouldn't you want to, I had a friend who was in real estate. So I was like, wouldn't you want it to look nice? And I watched a little HGTV. So I was just curious. And I called the lady on the real estate sign and I said, hey, do you know your grass is all out of control here at this house you're trying to sell? And she's like, oh yeah, can you give us a quote to mow it? She just assumed I was a lawn care company.
Hey.
And so it was like a cartoon and the light bulb went off. I was like, I can make some money. This is good. So I don't know where I got $60 from because all I ever did in high school was mow my neighbor Frank yard for $20 a pop. And I'd use his mower. He gave me a $20 bill, which was big money, in the 90s when you're in high school. And so actually in 2000, so I started in probably 7th grade, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I tell her $60. And long story short, I ended up losing about $140 on my first lawn care job because I didn't have any equipment. I had to rent equipment. I had to pay my friend. And so I'm thinking I'm about to make money. I'm in the whole minus 140. But I was like, you know what? This is actually kind of fun. And I think if I do enough yards in my neighborhood, I could make $928. And so my friend who was in Kansas City had a mower in the garage. So I would fold it up. It was a raggedy mower. It wasn't even self-propelled. I'd fold it up and I put it in a Honda Accord that I had. I didn't even have a truck. Yes. And I had a friend who let me borrow his weed eater and little handheld blower. So I put the weed eater in the back left of the car and I put it diagonal and I put the window down and it would fit diagonal across this 97 Honda Accord. So I went and I got Vista Print. Here's my raggedy marketing plan. This was awful, but I got free little business cards off Vista Print. And there's hundreds of yards in this neighborhood. So I just walked across, each yard. I jam it in their front door. I didn't know you couldn't put it in their mailbox. I'd open their mailbox, put it in. I had no idea. I'm breaking the law, but I'm just hustling.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, Maria in a black Escalade drives by. She's like, "Hey, you cut grass?" Like, absolutely. $25, which was at the time in the Atlanta market, it was a $45 per man hour rate, but I didn't know about numbers. I didn't know about anything. I had $25. I cut
You knew you needed $928
I knew what I
by
needed.
Friday.
And I was thinking my options were I could go get a flight to Vegas and go gamble and maybe bet on enough games to make it. Like that was one option. Or I could rob a bank, or I'm like, I'm going to try the lawn care thing first, to come up with the money. And so I get Maria and then a guy named Reggie. It's funny how I can remember these people like it was yesterday. Reggie, he had this backyard with all these dogs and holes in the backyard, and I did his yard, and then Mrs. Stewart, and I started picking up these yards, and I started working my tail end off from time I woke up till the time I went to bed. We called it dark 30. I would work all day cutting that grass, making that cash, and somehow, some way, I scraped and clawed, and I was able to pay my friend $928. I was able to pay, my basic. I was renting the Honda Accord for $150 a month. So I was treading water. I was surviving, but I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was working so hard. So anyway, I did that. I ended up having to get a job at Carrabba's full time, 40 hours a week. I was a server in the evenings, 5-6 nights a week. I'd go and give people their pasta wheezy, or Carrabba's is actually really good food, by the way. So I worked there in the evenings, and I was doing this for a few years. And one night, one of my friends, I was talking to him, and he could tell I was having money problems. He's like, "Hey," he's been in business for a long time. He's like, "Hey man, you want to come grab dinner with me and my wife? We could talk about your business." I was like, "Sure." And so I brought up my checking accounts, my profit and loss statements, everything. And I thought I was doing pretty good because I was working in a fancy country club at this point. I had grown my business, and I thought I was doing pretty good because I was the Atlanta Falcons is our football team here in Atlanta, and I was doing some of their players, some of the coaches, and I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. And he started looking at my checking account, and he started looking at all my numbers, and he put his glasses on the tip of his nose. This is a few years I'm into my business, and he looked at me. He said, "How are you paying all your bills?" He's like, "Your business isn't making enough money, Paul." And that was the day my business changed forever. And what I realized was I was making my money at Carrabba's. I made good money as a server, and that paid my bills. But the lawn care business wasn't. By the time I paid myself owner's pay, I wasn't profitable. And so I started turning the corner. I started watching YouTube. Your buddy Jonathan, the Lawn Care Million. I started binge watching his videos. I started watching the Lawn Care Rookie, Naylor Taliaferro, and there was a guy back then called Geek the Freak, Greg Chisholm. I don't know if you remember him, but I started watching his videos, and I just started going to YouTube University and learning this stuff. And my business started turning the corner. I started actually increasing my profit margins, and actually becoming a real business owner, and not just Chuck in the truck. And that brought me to 2018. And that's when I started my podcast, because at this point, my business was now respectable and legitimate and growing and profitable. But I always had this sensitivity in my heart that when I was a lawn care business owner just starting out, no one really helped me too much. It was like my competition would stare at me and mean bug me, and they didn't, it was like I didn't know what I was doing, but no one wanted to help out. And so that was a huge motivation of starting my podcast, and helping others. There's so many other folks out there that don't really know their numbers. They don't really know how to market. They don't really know the proper pricing and company culture and all these things that we preach day in and day out on our podcast. And so, long story short, in 2018, I started a podcast, and as far as I'm aware, it's the only daily show in our industry. We crank out episodes Monday through Friday. As far as I know, it's the most downloaded, listened to show in our industry. We get, over 100,000 downloads every single month, and it's a top 1% show globally in the world, compared to all the other podcasts. It's in the top 1%. And so anyway, now what I'm doing is I'm helping others take their business from Chuck in the truck status to a high profit, well-oiled machine that maybe they could sell for a bunch of money, or just if they want to run the company and pay themselves that it's actually hitting good profit margins. So that's a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah. So not pulling the ladder up into the clubhouse behind you. You're letting everybody else come up with you.
Yeah, trying to help as many folks as we can, because again, I remember, Cody, I was at a football player's house, and the other company that had this nice white box truck and the uniforms and the fancy reel mowers and the 60-inch rotary mowers, they had all the stuff, and they just looked at me like I was the scum of the earth, like this guy will never make it. And they were just arrogant, proud, and showing off. And I remember thinking, I want to grow a business like this guy, but I don't have the money. I don't have the experience. And so I always remember the broke, busted, and disgusted Paul that got overlooked and got trampled upon by the other guy in the neighborhood, the other company in the neighborhood that was much bigger than me. And so it's like, I want to help that guy who used to be me, but I want to help those folks become the other folks, but not with the arrogance and the pride.
Yeah. Kind of remember where you came from. And I think just like cultivating an attitude of helpfulness in the way that you talk about things on the show makes it where you're not going to necessarily generate the kind of people who wouldn't want to help the $25 a lawn chuck in a truck sort of guy.
Right. And a lot of them, they just don't know. They just don't really understand the overhead it costs to run a business, Cody. And it's not like they're trying to go out there and lose money. They just don't know. And so we, gather the information and share it to help folks take their business to the next level. And a lot of people in the home service industry from other occupations are tracking with us. And they're like, man, there's nothing like this in our industry. And I know you guys talk a lot about the battery powered versus gas powered equipment, but I can tolerate that as long as you teach me how to do overhead cost recovery and marketing and all that stuff. So,
yeah. Well, let's talk about your marketing journey a little bit. So you talked about like early on getting the free business cards from Vistaprint. What came next? Like in 2018, when you're like rounding that corner to be a more professional business, what's the marketing transition look like?
Yeah, well, I would say it was 2013, 14, we rounded the corner. It was the first few years were a disaster. I mean, everything wrong you could have done.
2018 was when you started the podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So I had some years under my belt of success before starting the podcast, but the best marketing wheelhouse that I found, I stumbled upon it in the country club that I base my business out of. There's about 950, 960 homes when I started. Now there's over 1,000 homes because they added new ones, and it's maxed out. There's no more land left, but we'll just call it 1,000 homes.
Yeah.
Well, they have in this neighborhood what's called the women's club. And so as a homeowner, you pay your HOA fee. They got gated community. You have to go through a security gate for the guy to let you in, and they got little rent-a-cops driving around the neighborhood. Pardon me. Security going around the neighborhood. And as a part of being a homeowner in this neighborhood, you get access to their website and what's called a women's club. And so in this women's club, the 1,000 wives, women that live in the neighborhood, they communicate with each other and say, hey, this babysitter's really good, or this babysitter sucks. She's on her phone the whole time, texting her boyfriend, and she neglected our kids, or this painter's skillful, or this painter's bad. And then probably the most common thing they talk about is, hey, this landscaping company is really good. This person's competent. This person's trustworthy. So somehow, some way, I was doing the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, was one of my customers, and his wife was a influencer, if you will, with these 1,000 women. And so someone would say, hey, I need a new lawn care person. And then, hey, you got to try Paul, one call, that's all, call Paul. So she was doing this marketing for me in this closed group of 1,000 women in my target market. And that would just keep my phone ringing off the hook. And I didn't have to leave the gates of the fancy neighborhood because we have a lot of traffic in Atlanta. The gate opened at 8 a.m. and we were there about 7:50, 7:53 in line and with all the other contractors. We get in at 8 a.m. and we'd work till 4 or 5, but we didn't have to leave the neighborhood. We'd be in the same neighborhood all day, and I was able to market through that women's club closed group. That was my main source of marketing.
Man, that is the dream, like a neighborhood that's big enough to sustain a business on. And You've got that built-in route density and the word of mouth among people that live there. It's cool to like have a neighborhood where the people actually communicate with one another, because I feel like that can be hard to find now. Like I have friends that just moved into a new neighborhood. I don't think they know any of their neighbors. It's just like, it's hard to find that sort of community. Have you, as you've grown, have you had to expand out of that country club neighborhood?
Well, yes and no. So I was in that country club, and then I was in another country club in Johns Creek. For those who listen to my podcast, they love when I talk about the Atlanta market. But that country club was in Duluth, Georgia, and then I was in Johns Creek. I was in Swanee. I was in Lawrenceville. So as I matured, I actually started to cut out the Lawrenceville route, and then the Swanee route came last. But the Johns Creek, and I started just slowly going all in on this one neighborhood because it's big money. I mean, it's multi-million-dollar homes and high ticket price items, not just your maintenance program, but you can do larger ticket price items. So I kind of put all my eggs in one basket. And I wish I would have done that sooner, honestly, but that was kind of, instead of expanding out of the neighborhood, just kind of stuck right in our wheelhouse there.
Yeah. So is that you've added services over time to have more upsell opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. Landscape enhancements. That's the wheelhouse. That's the moneymaker for sure.
Yeah. So what did that evolution of adding services look like?
Well, originally my friend Jamie, she's a Georgia certified landscape professional. I didn't know how to like take the bar or the graph paper and draw the house and do the design work. And, I barely passed 7th grade art class. So I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know the names of all of the plants. I knew our basic, the azaleas and the boxwoods, and I could name the common ones that I knew, but I didn't know the terminology. I didn't know basic design concepts. And so with customers, these folks are very, very wealthy. So if they move into the house, this happened multiple times, they'll say, this is ugly, man. Let's just rank it all out. Yeah, literally. Like, well, do you want to keep, nah, let's just start from scratch. It's like, well, Japanese maple's kind of nice. Let's just start from scratch. Let's yank it all out. And so what I would do is Jamie and her husband, Derek, I would subcontract out to them. They would come in, they would do a design consultation. They would give the design on the fancy paper with the little skid bar, I don't know the name of that paper that the architects use. Mm-hmm. She would draw it up and, deliver it to them. Professional. She's one of the top landscapers in Georgia, got all the certifications, the G-CLIP, we call it, Georgia Certified Landscape Professional. She'd come in and do the job and, 20, 30,000 and beyond to do a front yard, backyard. The bottom base is 10,000. We don't do a remodel for less than 10 grand. It's just, that's where you start, but that's, no one ever just stays there. They always want this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
So what happened was I would work with her a little bit as she would do the jobs. I would just kind of help out and pay attention and learn as I go. And then as the months and years rolled on, next thing you know, and she even said to me one day, because I'm sitting there, oh, you need a Sky Pencil Holly there. And she's like, dude, where did all this come from, Paul? I was like, it's like when a little 2 or 3 year old, they just learn to talk. And then by the time they're 4 years old, they're fluid, in their language. And so as I begin to get more confident, then instead of subcontracting things out to Jamie and Derek, I started getting more confident. And I'm like, okay. And I remember my first job was 17,500. I think it was my 3rd year. And I was like terrified. I was like, so I've never done a job this big.
Yeah.
But I was like, I know how to do it. And I did my first one. And then once I got that under my belt, I was like, not that I despise lawn mowing, but I was like, dude, I can make so much more money in 3 or 4 days doing a landscape enhancement job than all year of doing a maintenance at a property.
Yeah. So, and y'all are still in routine maintenance, but you're doing the landscape installs, are like filling out a lot more of the business now.
Right. So the business model, and I'm not saying this is what other folks should do, but this is what my mentors started showing me as the recipe for success in the Atlanta market, is the mow, edge, trim, and blow is the bread and butter to put yourself in position
Yes.
for the enhancements. Because let's say Mrs. Smith wants a new front yard remodel or backyard remodel. If you're the competent lawn maintenance provider that's got everything looking crispy and professional and pristine already, 99% of the time she's going to first check in with you. Hey, we're looking to add this or add that. Is that something you're interested in? And it's like a no-brainer. It's like, yes. So back to the marketing plan, it's almost as if it's the marketing plan of doing the mow, edge, trim, blow to put yourself in position to get the landscape enhancements and to be very proactive and intentional, Cody, to market the upsell and cross sell to the existing customer.
Yes.
Because in this neighborhood, for example, and I don't know in other cities if you have these opulent, crazy neighborhoods. I mean, my customers drove the Rolls Royces, I didn't even know the name of these cars, but there was Aston Martin. I think it was called a Ferrari, Lamborghini. One guy had a Lamborghini and a Ferrari stacked on top of each other because he only had a 3-car garage, and he just had it.
A car elevator.
Yeah, just had it stacked. And I got a little bit of an echo, Cody. I don't know if you have that on your end.
I am not hearing it, but it very well could be because of me.
Okay, it went away. So anyway, if an outsider comes into the neighborhood and does marketing that, hey, we do this remodel or whatever, they're still in second place because the person that has the familiarity and is on that person's property every, week in and week out, they're going to get first dibs on the landscape enhancement. So the mow, edge, trim, and blow is only to get the landscape enhancements. That was the intentional plan once I had some business IQ. But when I started, I didn't even know how to do sod. All I knew how to do was push a raggedy mower. And so that's just where I got started. But if you listen to my podcast, we obviously teach others. Don't just do mow, edge, trim, blow unless you're doing it in high volume and you're doing like real mowing specialty or something. But to go where the money's at, and that's in the upsells, cross sells of landscape enhancement, fertilization, weed control, all that stuff.
Yeah. One thing that I've talked about in the past is the idea that you think about marketing and selling as a relationship, and that sort of introductory service, the mow, edge, and blow, is asking someone if you can buy them a drink, take them out to dinner. It's like a normal date sort of thing. But that big, $17,000 install, even for someone who's wealthy, that is a little bit like asking them to, you've never met them before and, hey, let's go to Cabo together. Like, it's a big ask. It's not the normal trajectory of a relationship.
Right. Absolutely. That's spot on.
So tell us a little bit about the growth of the podcast to close out here, because you went from, I've been in the industry for, I think like 6-7 years now. And you went from, like, oh, hey, there's this new podcast, to like, everybody knows who you are. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's really, really, really exciting. Our mutual friend Naylor, we were at Waffle House in August or September of 2018, and we're sitting there drinking coffee, eating Waffle House for breakfast, and I was telling him, I was like, I think I'm going to start a podcast. And he's like, dude, I think you should go for it. And because at the time, a lot of people were like doing YouTube and Instagram was starting to grow a little bit, but there's only one guy doing a podcast, Julio Tomei, that I knew personally. But other than that, there wasn't as much action going on in the podcasting world. And so I started from day one, and I was like, I'm going to make a goal to hit 100 episodes, because I didn't want to do like 20 and just have not that many views and be like, or downloads or whatever, and be like, well, it's just not working out. So I set a goal to make 100 episodes. And so as I was getting to 100, I was like, I'll reevaluate everything. And once we crossed that 100 episode mark, the show was just getting momentum, and the satisfaction and the rewards of getting a DM from someone and saying, dude, I listen to you every morning, or thank you so much. I just did this job and made this profit because of what you said. Or I just raised my prices these springs, and all these, to see other people succeed is satisfying to me.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And then doors started opening. I got to go to Toro's world headquarters a couple of times. I got to go to Echo's world headquarters a couple of times, Kohler Engines, and all these other companies. we started getting on their radar, and they started inviting us places, and I literally meet the CEO of Toro and Echo, and start to get to mingle with some of these guys, and they're giving me the thumbs up, like they know who I am. I'm like, what? Like what? Like what? Like, yeah, man, keep up the good work, or and I'm just like, it just blew my mind. And so I think it was 21 when we went full time with Monday through Friday, like making it like a morning show, like a radio morning show, fresh episodes every single day. So I didn't ever think it would be in the top 1% of all global podcasts, but here we are. And I'm just warming up. I think that there's hundreds of thousands of lawn care landscaping businesses registered in the United States of America, and very few of them are actually, I mean, you can look at the top 100 in that magazine, Lawn and Landscape magazine. Those companies might be hitting good profit margins and good revenue, but most of the mid to lower tier companies are actually underperforming. And if we can provide the information, and it's free
Yeah,
content to them, I think we can elevate this industry, because a lot of the other industries like electricians and the HVAC and a lot of the interior home service based businesses, they have somewhat of a respect in a financial success to those run of the mill companies. But when you come to lawn care landscaping, we're kind of the lower echelon of the home service based field, and that always bothered me because it's so beautiful what we can do with people's properties. And I just want to elevate the industry. We have the Augusta National Golf Course here in Georgia, which is like the pinnacle of landscaping and lawn care. And it's like, I want to bring that spirit of excellence with the technician side of things, with the business side of things. And, that's kind of the vision of the show. And it's just picking up steam because there's a lot of folks out there that want to improve their business.
Yeah. Yeah. And the some of the lack of respect for the industry, I feel like stems from like, well, I can mow my own yard, and not realizing the level of expertise that goes into, when you're providing full landscaping services, you're doing design work, you're choosing plants that will work in your environment, all of that experience that goes into there. I can turn my faucet on in the bathroom. That doesn't make me a plumber. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot of those exterior home services don't get the kind of respect that they deserve because, Joe homeowner thinks that he's a landscaper because he planted some annuals once that died in 3 days and can push his lawnmower.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you're bringing that and being right there by Augusta National, a course that people know and see on TV. It's sort of like, hey, this is like super professional. This requires a lot of expertise.
Right. Totally.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on your show a couple of times over the last month. And I look forward to being on again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, Cody.
Yeah. So people can find you anywhere podcasts are distributed, whatever your preferred podcast app is. And you also have a YouTube channel. We sending people over there?
Yeah, I got 2 YouTube channels. So Paul Jamison is my main channel. And then I have the other channel is Green Industry Podcast with Paul Jamison, where we take the video format of our podcast, similar to Joe Rogan. And we have those videos on the Green Industry Podcast with Paul Jamison channel. So nice. Those are more of your business pieces of content. And then I got the other channel, Paul Jamison. That's out there with me mowing the overgrown grass and making more, kind of in the field fun videos like that. So those are kind of my 2 channels.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So we'll have a link in the description to the podcast, just the Apple Podcasts link. And then we'll have links out to the channels there. So you guys can check out Paul in every platform where he's available.